All right, so let's talk about monetary policy. So, monetary policy are ways the central bank, which is the Bank of Canada, how the so yeah, monetary policy are basically any type of policy that the central bank uses to influence the economy. Okay. Um, the way I'm going to explain monetary policy is going to be kind of a little weird. I'm going to go backwards and then I will go forward if it's going to make sense because the way monetary policy is used, or monetary tools, is the bank actually kind of does it in reverse. So I just want to give you a logical causal relationship, so you get the big picture, and then we can go back and fill in the gaps. Okay. So I want you guys to go back to aggregate demand and the determinants of aggregate demand. If you remember with aggregate demand, there are different determinants that affect consumer expenditure, business expenditure, and indirectly net exports, which I'll talk about in a sec. But if you think about our aggregate demand, and our air demand, you have seen this, is equal to C plus I plus G plus our net exports. And you can see here that anytime any of our components change, so an increase in C will increase our air demand, which will then shift our air demand to the right, which will then increase price level and real GDP. But remember, if you think about our consumption expenditure, our investment expenditure, that one of the determinants is interest rate. So if you look in your notes, I think it's your week 11 notes, that if interest rate goes up, consumption expenditure goes down, and business expenditure goes down. And I'm going to tell you ahead of time, before I work out how that works, is that your net exports will also fall. So now you know that anytime the Bank of Canada changes interest rate, it is going to have an impact on consumer spending, business spending, and net exports. So I want you guys to think about this. So how does the money market affect our goods market? And this is what we call is the transmission of our monetary policy. So, you're going to see this in your notes, but I must well keep it on the whiteboard here. Is our money market is determined by money supply and money demand. Okay. Our money supply is vertical because we can actually measure how much money is out there. That is our M1 and our M2, and this is our money supply. And our money demand is the amount that people want to hold in terms of cash. And so you got to think that cash pays you no interest. It doesn't pay you any earnings. So a rational individual will probably want to keep most of their quote unquote cash in some type of investment, either stocks or mutual funds or bonds. In economics, we're in this class, we're going to just simplify it that you're either going to hold cash, which pays you no return, or something that pays you and some kind of interest bearing instrument like bonds or GICs and stuff like that. Okay, so long story short, what we can pretty much say is that the value of money is equal to interest rates. And interest rate we define as R. Okay, whoops, it's little r, not big R. Okay, so that means that, interest rate is the cost of borrowing money, and interest rate is the payment you're going to receive for lending money. Okay, so interest rate is the cost of money or the price of money. We're also going to assume that the Bank of Canada has complete control over the money supply in the nation. And you'll see how they're able to influence it when we go backwards. Okay, but I want to show you the causal relationship right now. So that means anytime the Bank of Canada wants to stimulate the economy, the Bank of Canada is going to increase the money supply. MS1, QM1. And when the bank increases the money supply, well, interest rates fall to R1. So when interest rate falls, what's going to happen? When interest rate falls, you're going to see consumer spending, investment spending, and net exports they're all going to increase. And when these sectors increase, you're going to see an increase in aggregate demand. And that is what the Bank of Canada will do to try and stimulate the economy, is they will reduce the money supply, they'll reduce interest rate, which will then stimulate consumers to go out and spend, businesses to invest in their business, and our trading partners to buy more of our goods, okay, thus increasing aggregate demand. If the bank wants to slow down the economy, what they're going to do is they are going to reduce the money supply right there, MS2. This should be a 2, that should be an S. And your quantity of money goes down, which will then increase interest rates. And when interest rate goes up, well, the opposite's going to happen. So when interest rate goes up, you're going to see a decline in C, I, and our net exports, which will then decrease AD. So I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a causal relationship to see what will happen. So let's try and put a graph in here, and I'm going to erase these little relationships here and just put in a graph. So in this case, if I were to use a aggregate supply and aggregate demand graph, and I'm going to give you a point of where we are starting, which is, and I'm going to color code it so it makes sense. So this is where we're starting at R0. So if the Bank of Canada lowers interest rate, what's going to happen? You're going to see aggregate demand shifting to the right, which will then increase our price level in the economy and increase real GDP or national income. And if the Bank of Canada wants to slow down the economy, they are going to reduce the money supply, which in turn will reduce AD and shift AD to the left, and lower our national income or real GDP and lower prices. So that is, in a nutshell, how monetary policy works, okay? However, like I said in the beginning of monetary policy, is that they do things in reverse. So I'll just go through in my next video what exactly that means.